When do you think should a young doctor fresh out of his post-graduation, when should he dive into private practice?
Post-graduation usually does not prepare you to be on your own.
Everybody also wants to be famous, and there is the money that is required.
So in private practice, the liability is double. One becomes your financial liability. Second is your performance liability. You are going to be one-man army. So this one-man army has to make name, play the game and be the topper.
जब लोग 6 महीने और 1 साल में प्रैक्टिस शुरू किया करते थे, why do both of you all today say कि नहीं 2-3 साल या शायद 5 साल?
That time going into private practice was easier for a simple reason.
Hi, and welcome to Talk Tales, a podcast where medicine meets meaning. I'm your host, Dr. Kshitij Shah, and we look to invite fellow doctors here not because of their designations, but the journeys that they've had and the thinking that has helped them along. Stories of growth to grit, burnout to breakthroughs. These conversations go much beyond the routine clinic. Let's kick off today's episode with a question that looks deceptively simple. How does one look to upscale or build up the private practice? Well, it looks like a business decision, right? Should I go for a better clinic space? Should I expand my clinic? Should I look to a better infrastructure? But as you dig a little deeper, you realize it's more about a journey of self-awareness, often collaboration, and long-term planning or vision. Should I stay solo in practice or should I look to have a group practice? Should I continue doing what I do or should I look to specialize further? Should I stay in a big city or should I move to a smaller town? Well, these are questions जो काफी लोगों के दिमाग में रहते हैं, पर हमको जवाब कैसे मिलेंगे? And so let's dive right in. I'd like to welcome our first guest for today's episode. Welcome Dr. Samir Bhobe. Dr. Samir is a successful ENT and head neck surgeon practicing in the city of Navi Mumbai with more than 3 decades of experience. Welcome.
Thank you, Kshitij. My pleasure to be here.
And my second guest is Dr. Makarand Damle. Dr. Makarand is a practicing ENT and head neck surgeon in the city of Mumbai with more than 2 decades of experience. Welcome, Makarand.
Thank you, Kshitij, for having me.
The reason to have these guys here is not just to understand their journey, but how they went about navigating these crossroads of private practice, how they had their shift in mindset, and what tips can they share which will help all of us to look to upscale our private practice. So let's dive right in. So Makarand, let's start with you. You've started your practice a long time back, but when you look at today's generation, today's times and world, when do you think should a young doctor fresh out of his post-graduation, when should he or she dive into private practice?
Post-graduation usually does not prepare you to be on your own. When you're doing post-graduation, there is always a hierarchy. There is somebody below you, there is somebody above you, there is somebody to help you out. There is always a helping hand. There is always somebody's shoulder you can lean on. There is always somebody as your backup. When you get into private practice, you're a one-man army. You're your own resident, you're your own houseman, you're your own registrar. There is no lecturer, there is no boss to bail you out. So you better be competent when you're actually getting into private practice. There is a thought process where people feel that, jump into private practice, start earning money and, as a doctor, you're going to really reach the moon. It doesn't happen that way. Into private practice, like I just said, you're a one-man army. You have to be confident of your skill sets. You have to be able to tackle at least 80 to 90% of the entire spectrum of your specialty competently. Once you feel that you achieved that, for some people it may happen maybe just a year after postgrad. For some people it may take 3-4 years. But when you feel that you have reached that level of competency, that is probably the right time that you should start thinking of private practice.
Okay, that's well said. I'm going to ask Dr. Samir the same question, thoda alag tarike se. Obviously, doctors as a career start late with respect to other professions, right? Who doesn't want name in their career? Everybody also wants to be famous. And there is the moolah, the money that is required because ghar to chalana hi hai. Keeping these aspects in mind, same question, but as I said, different perspective, कि ये सब चीजें सोच के that name भी चाहिए, fame भी चाहिए, money चाहिए, and he said be competent. Where would you rate that आजकल where should people look to start after how many years of competency? would they look to start private practice? मतलब खुद के बलबूते पे. What do you think?
So in private practice, the liability is double. One becomes your financial liability. Second is your performance liability. You are going to be, like he said, one-man army. So this one-man army has to make name, play the game, and be the topper. So till you don't go this ladder, it's a hand in hand. The money is going to give you the name, and for the name, you need the money to put in a practice. In private practice, everything is yours. Your instrument, your place, and no patients in the beginning. So you have to work hard to do all these things together to come up. So in a private practice, once you have, like he said, got the skill set and enough amount of backing, the money part and the psychological part, then you decide to jump in. It's every person will have to decide his time to go into the game. The reason being, it's not only the money, the skill, and a huge amount of paraphernalia required to go into the private practice.
Right. Could you expand on that? What do you mean by that?
So, in a private practice, you will be going into your own clinic, your own hospital, or hospitals will take you up as a consultant. So, for a consultant to be taken up in a city or in most of the hospitals, they desire a doctor to be at least 5 years post MS. So, this is a protocol in most of the hospitals that the doctor is 5 years post MS. So, this 5-year post MS will be required for the person for getting his skill set, getting enough of money to go into the private practice. So it is like your question is to a certain extent self-answered. If you jump into private practice prior to 5 years, you have to have your own clinic, your own hospital, because nobody is going to pick you up as a consultant.
Correct. So you've touched upon a very interesting part, and I'm going to get you to expand on that before I get Makarand's views on it. So what you're saying is, I understand that 5 years when hospitals will look to pick you up, and the dichotomy you said is that खुद का clinic रखना है पर पैसे कहाँ पे है. Now again, I'm not getting personal, but as times have changed, this is your recommendation currently. May I ask you, when did you start your private practice? How many years after MS, and what was different at that time?
So, well, it's interesting. I started my private practice 6 months after my MS.
Wow.
So those were the times when we came out as a postgraduate. There were not too many places to go. There were no fellowships. There were no other courses to do and learn things. So we used to be observers to the bosses, go into the private clinic, see how a private practice works. It was entirely a different ballgame as compared to a medical college. A medical college was an umbrella which was protecting you. You were learning, you were enjoying, no liabilities, and at the same time, a doctor.
So what has changed? I mean, many things are, but I want you to put this into, because I agree with you. I am just looking to put more perspective or clarity in this, कि जब लोग 6 महीने और 1 साल में प्रैक्टिस शुरू किया करते थे, why do both of you all today say कि नहीं 2-3 साल या शायद 5 साल? Just a quick...
So that time, going into private practice was easier for a simple reason. We just had to buy a consulting room in a commercial premises, convert it to a consulting room and start a practice.
Right.
The number of doctors of a branch in an area used to be much lesser than the amount of doctors now in an area to start practicing. So all said and done, the competition was not so much for a young doctor to start practicing,
right,
and try to make his name, because you were compared to your peers. So the number of peers for comparison were lesser. Now the number of peers where a person will go and start a practice will be much more than what we had at our times.
That's absolutely true. Yeah.
So that's the difference which has come in 32 years back as compared to what it is now for a young doctor to come out.
Right. So that's really insightful. And Makarand, would you like to add something more on this with respect to starting practice? And I have something else to add for you after that.
Well, in most medical specialities, there have been tremendous advances in the last 20 odd years.
True.
So what you would learn in your postgrad 20 years ago, when I was a postgrad, was very limited. Today, the scope of each specialty has really gone up. Secondly, the kind of equipment, the digitization, the input that is required to start private practice has gone up. And third and fourth most important things that we need to consider is, one is the Consumer Protection Act. 30 years ago, there was no act at all. So, not to condone any wrongdoing or justify any wrongdoing, but today you have to be that much more careful. So, getting the right amount of experience, and today, not just getting that experience, but getting that certification. When you put a certain specialization on your board or on your clinic outside, you need to have some kind of backup, some kind of paperwork which says that yes, you have done this specialization. So, from that point of view, some kind of additional experience always counts. So, from a consumer protection point of view, also, you need to be very sure of what you're doing, and that's why putting in those additional few years always helps.
So Dr. Samir did mention, and he spoke about 5 years before someone picks you up, a hospital. But before a hospital picks you up, would you feel that starting your own clinic is possibly the way ahead for someone 2 to 3 years out of practice? What are your thoughts on that?
Today, when you look at professional avenues for doctors, there are not very many avenues when you get out of an institute. Employment per se is hardly an avenue for any doctor. 90% of doctors will have to practice on their own. Private practice, self-employed. So,
Right.
private practice is basically what you're looking at once you become a postgraduate doctor in India.
Right.
Now, when you get into private practice, like we talked, you need to have a certain basic skill set with you. 20 years ago or maybe 30 years ago, there was no Consumer Protection Act. Most specialties were vastly underdeveloped. But over the last 20 years, not only has the consumer protection come in strongly, but most specialties have really developed well. So I somewhere feel that starting out raw into private practice just at the end of your post-graduation is not the way forward. You need to hone your skills, you need to develop some specialty on your own, which will make you stand out in a crowd of people from your specialty. So putting in a couple of years, 3 years after postgrad always helps before you jump into the pool of private practice.
So I understand what you said, and my next question to you, Dr. Samir, is Makarand mentioned that employment is not that easy. So what would be your message when people are looking to start out practice? Should you look to get employments with corporates, which doesn't happen everywhere? Or maybe look at options like renting out a clinic or something like that, because you may not invest the whole money. What would your take be?
So in a private practice, you have these options: is either the corporate practice, where the corporate hospital you start working as a doctor, or you start your own clinic or your own hospital. Depending on your branch will be the need of a hospital, the size. So it is all pertaining to your specialty. Now coming to your own self-employment, it's self-employed as a doctor and there are the employees under you. So when you start a private practice, so there are small things which have to be brought up, and the whole new thing. I have been practicing for 3 decades now. So when we started out, even a hospital was a building converted into a hospital. Now it's not so. Compliances have set in. So these compliances, irrespective of which part of the country you are in, आपको करनी ही है वो. आपको NABH करना है, आपको ये सारी चीजें करनी है, आपको एम्प्लॉयज लेने हैं. सी देयर वाज अ टाइम जब हमने चालू किया था, हम किसी को भी पकड़ के ट्रेन करके उसको सिस्टर करके बताया करते थे. अभी आपको सिस्टर और नर्स बिना JNM, ANM, BSc के एम्प्लॉय भी आप नहीं कर सकते. सो यू हैव टू बी वेरी केयरफुल नाउ व्हेन यू गो. सो कमिंग टू योर क्वेश्चन, self-employed doctor has only these 3 options. If you have your own finances, then you start your hospital or you start your own clinic, or you look out for small nursing homes which you can take up as a hospital, or
get attached to them.
get attached to it. तो
Right.
आपका burden कम हो जाता है. आपको उनके बनाए पेशेंट मिलते हैं क्योंकि उनका they have a name. So there are people walking into that hospital asking for a doctor. So they lead them to you, and then it's your skill, your communication skill, your doctor skill to make him your patient.
And that is usually the way most people started out in practice, by getting attached to a few
Yes.
smaller nursing homes or smaller hospitals, and then
Exactly.
And so let me take this forward with you, since we are chatting right now. What would be the next step forward? Let's say now someone has been in practice for 5 years. आपने पहले सब कुछ बताया स्टाफ के बारे में, साथ में पेशेंट्स भी लाने पड़ते हैं.
बिल्कुल.
राइट. अभी पेशेंट्स आ गए हैं, थोड़ा बहुत आपके एरिया में थोड़ा नाम हो गया है कि लोग जानने लगे हैं कि आप स्पेशलिटी के हो. व्हाट वुड बी द नेक्स्ट स्टेप देन? आई मीन, हाउ वुड यू लुक टू स्केल अप प्रैक्टिस?
सो एक बार आपका नाम हो जाने के बाद में आप जानते हो कि आपको हर डॉक्टर को डिपेंडिंग ऑन हिज ब्रांच उसमें से कुछ चीजें अच्छी लगती है. सो द डेज आर नाउ यू मे बी जैक ऑफ ऑल बट यू कांट रिमेन द मास्टर ऑफ नन. Eventually you will try to become master of something. So when you realize after 5 years कि ये मेरे को अच्छा लगता है करने को, that's the time when you start upscaling your skill and your practice. So आपको पता चला है कि आपको फलाना फलाना अच्छा लग रहा है. So then you go do further courses, attend more conferences, and then you project yourself in the vicinity कि I do this the best. This is my special interest. This is what I am good at and I want to continue with. And the patient accepted. See, 30 साल पहले जीपी हुआ करते थे, जनरल डॉक्टर हुआ करते थे. नाउ मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम्स पेशेंट्स गो डायरेक्टली, बच्चों को कुछ होता है पेशेंट पीडियाट्रिशियन के पास जाते हैं. दे डोंट गो टू अ जनरल डॉक्टर एंड एमबीबीएस. सो द डेज हैव कम व्हेन द जनरल पब्लिक हैव स्टार्टेड आइडेंटिफाइंग कि इफ दिस इज द प्रॉब्लम, दिस इज द डॉक्टर. दे डोंट गो टू अ general doctor and then. So,
but I agree with what you say that specialization has become a norm.
So
Yes.
you have to become specialized eventually. Like he rightly said, keep now each branch is divided into super speciality. So it's a vast thing.
Makarand, coming to you, because Dr. Bhobe spoke about upskilling your skill set, upscaling your skill set. Now that is a certain investment in skills. When would you think is the right time to invest in infrastructure? Because along with skills, obviously, there is a lot of investment required in different kinds of equipment. Whether you're a surgeon or a medical clinician, you need to invest in your equipment. When would be the right time for that? The first 5 years, 5 to 10 years, how do you plan it?
Today, equipment is something without which you cannot practice. All medical specialties, हर चीज में आपको equipment चाहिए, हर चीज में आपको cutting edge technology चाहिए. And today patients are also aware of the fact.
Yeah.
So if you are sitting in a small corner, practicing like you were practicing 20 years ago, so you are never going to get anywhere.
You get outdated.
So you're outdated, and you get outdated every single day of your practice if you don't keep up. I mean, right from whether it is social media or technology or marketing or the way you present yourself. I mean, 30 साल पहले actually लोग चप्पल पहन के आते थे क्लिनिक में. You dare do that today. You dare walk into your clinic without being properly dressed. So, upscaling is something which starts from day one. There is no timeline to it. You cannot say that 5 saal mein I'll earn a certain amount of money and then I'll put, because that money is your investment. Unless you invest in a share, it's never going to give you returns. So, equipment is like the same thing. Upscaling is something which has to happen every single day of your life till you're practicing.
That's well said. So, corporates talk of ROI. In practice, when you are your own king and your own servant too, do you really depend on ROI, or as you said, you need to start investing also logically?
So, बिना ROI के तो काम चलेगा नहीं. आप private practice में हो, if you invest money, you want something back. So, 2 things that you have to look for is, one is ROI in terms of what are you investing and what is going to get back to you. And second is, what is something which is absolutely mandatory, कि जिसके बिना आप कुछ कर ही नहीं सकते. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इफ यू आर रनिंग अ नर्सिंग होम और अ हॉस्पिटल, you cannot work without having a defibrillator in your OT.
Correct. Some mandatory basic equipment.
You hope never to use it in your life.
Yeah.
मेरे नर्सिंग होम में 20 साल से डिफिब यूज नहीं हुआ है. बट इट इज समथिंग दैट आई हैव टू हैव. इट इज मनी विच हैज नो ROI, थैंकफुली, बट वो होना जरूरी है. सो यू हैव टू प्रायोरिटाइज. नाउ इन अ सर्जिकल फील्ड, if you don't have a camera, start with something. If you think I'll buy a 4-chip camera for 50 lakhs on day one, that's never going to happen. So,
and not wise to possibly.
Not
day
wise
one.
to also.
Yeah.
So your needs, your wants have to be matched somewhere when you are looking at ROI.
Correct. So I'm going to shift the discussion to a little bit of, because I think one of you mentioned about sitting in a small corner of place. Now, being in city of Mumbai, Navi Mumbai, things are different. It's probably very competitive, but again, the kind of practice is different. Patients zyada, doctors bhi zyada hai. Let's talk a little bit about geography. I mean, you may not have practiced outside your respective cities, but I'm sure you have friends and colleagues who are, in different tier 2, tier 3 cities. Do you feel that unka acha hai, they're kings there and we struggle? Or do you think that is, let's say, a little, sometimes they say disadvantage hai because वहाँ पे patients इतना pay नहीं करते, यहाँ पे pay कर सकते. What is your perspective of tier 2 and tier 3 cities across the country?
So, tier 2, tier 3 cities which are there now are going to become tier 1 eventually, is how the way the country is progressing. 30 years back when we started, I personally was born and brought up in the heart of Bombay. When I started my practice, I left Bombay and I went to New Bombay. So when I went to New Bombay 32 years back, the traveling time for this 20 kilometers was 2 hours. So I was called that you are going out of Bombay.
Right.
So that was a tier 3 city. It was, so we can say Bombay was a municipal corporation, and where I went, it was a municipal council, which talks about the financial position of the city. So this city where I went is now the topmost municipality in India.
So would you call that move to be a bold one or a high risk
Yes.
one?
So what I mean is we take the step of going from a tier 1 city to a tier 3 city, which eventually comes to that. So it's a step when a new doctor, because I was not from a doctor family or a business family. So I had to look out for my own stuff. There was no one to support me. So if there are new doctors or eventually going to be like me, they will have to make this bold step of stepping out of the tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3. The only difference being in those cities, you don't have any support logistically or anything. So you have to do everything on your own. Set up your practice, teach people what you are. So there are some of these tier 2, tier 3 cities where they may not even know about a particular branch. So these kind of doctors exist in the world.
ये करते क्या है हम?
करते क्या है? क्योंकि उनके लिए एक छोटा सा दवाखाना होता है जहाँ पे कईयों बार, तो 30 years back, it was said and there were places where the compounders used to practice as doctors. So when a doctor comes and says, I am a qualified doctor, they are going to say, अरे वो तो 40 साल से है, आप क्या कर रहे हो मेरे यहाँ? So you have to do everything in tier 2, tier 3 cities, and believe me, they are like a small fish in a big pond and a big fish in a small pond situation. So you have to create a niche for yourself, and believe me, what I would advise is, it's a bold step to take, but the way our country is going, things are faster. What took my place 30 years to develop will probably now take 5 or 10 years to go that way. So it is not a derogatory step for anybody to go from a city to a small town, because these cities are developing very fast. So
It's a calculated move according to you.
It's a calculated move, because the amount of money required when you don't have any.
That's true.
Plus, patient will look at you as something new. So the chances of you settling down faster are much more than what you have here.
As you said, you become a big fish in a small pond.
Very fast.
Coming to you, Makarand, about the same question, because you chose Mumbai to develop your practice. Do you come from a doctor family?
No.
So what made you now, because listening to Dr. Bhobe, I'm asking you this question on the spot. What made you decide to stay in Mumbai? What were the challenges at that point of time, which will be there this time too? And how has it been?
So here is where certain career choices that I made would probably come into play. Since I'm an ENT surgeon, 20 years ago, number of ENT surgeons in Mumbai also was minuscule.
So specialty matters.
Speciality mattered.
Yeah.
Having said that, having a social background, having a family background, having some kind of a support in the city made me stick to Bombay.
Correct.
But given a choice today, to second what Dr. Samir has said, is that the quality of life that a tier 2 or a tier 3 city offers you is far better than any tier 1 city in India. Secondly, the affordability and the number of patients that you drain is much more in tier 2 and tier 3 cities.
Yeah.
I mean, to say randomly compare the real estate rates in say Nagpur and Mumbai, the real estate rates in Nagpur are not even 20% of those of Bombay or Mumbai, but the affordability is at least 80 or 90% of what you have in Mumbai. So I think today it's a no-brainer that if you're not really attached to where you're born and brought up, or if you're willing to take that bold step of, pushing out of your comfort zone, then going to a tier 2 and tier 3 city makes absolute sense today.
So I get what you're saying, because financially it does make a lot of sense to, start at a place where you're not really so much vested in terms of money. So I'll start with you, Dr. Samir. You did mention, आपने mention किया था कि you started practice 40 kilometers out of a main city, Panvel, which is now, yes, tier 1, 2. When you look at tier 2, tier 3 towns, take that bold move, or even when you look at Mumbai, so the same question will apply to you, Makarand. Is there a way of scaling up practice by, let's say, doing promotional health camps, some free checkups? How do you get more popular in your locality amongst people, family practitioners generally? How do you get people to know you?
So, very, very pertinent question you have put in. Very nice. Thanks, Kshitij, for this. So, we have to do these camps as two things. One, it upscales your skills, and second, you're giving back to the society. So, it's a very good way of making yourself popular, your faculty popular, and making people known that you are around. So, when, like I said, I shifted to Panvel, they were not aware about a separate doctor is there for ear problems.
Correct.
So I had to literally educate doctors also that ear surgery can be done in Panvel itself.
Right.
So they were not aware. They thought ear surgery can be done only in Bombay. So when I told them, he says, "Arey, aisa kaisa hoga?" So these kind of giving back to the society by doing CMEs, by doing camps is a very good way, a very ethical, pertinent, social way to giving back to the society and making yourself popular.
And I did still relevant today.
Yes, very much. In fact, now with social media, when everything, it has become much more easier. So that time it was all physical. I had to go places and do it. So that time it used to take time, it used to take an effort, and we used to manage it eventually. Now it's become easy, but it's a very good and a popular way, I think, of doing it and spreading the right message to everybody that you are doing the right thing and it's for your good.
So before I move to you, Makarand, in the same vein, now let's say someone has started practice and it's 3 to 5 years into practice, is picking up. My question to you is, how much time should one devote in doing these kind of activities, which is giving back to society and charity also, and how much time would go? I mean, do you have I know it's not a fixed ratio, but is there a balance that's out of 7 days or 6 days a week, 6 working days a week, this many days or this much time should be going for such an activity? What would your recommendation be?
I would say, you look at it practically also. The afternoon periods, the private practice doesn't work.
Okay.
So you should give that time to these kind of institutes where, believe me, people are willing to come any time of the day. So to be very honest, I used to do it in the afternoon every day. So for a week, 6 days a week, I used to go to 6 trust hospitals.
Oh, okay.
And in the afternoon, I used to do a free OPD.
Extremely good.
So that was one way for me. My hands were occupied. I used to get to do free surgeries, but my hands were working as a surgeon.
You also upskilled yourself.
So that was the way I did it. So I would advise, if you have any kind of a trust hospital, Rotary, Lions, join them.
Right.
Do the work, give back to the society, keep your work on. Don't get stressed out that I don't have patients.
Right.
We all have learned eventually in the municipal hospital free patients. So don't get bogged down that now I am in private practice, patients should pay me. No, it's not necessary. You can pay back to the patients by doing these in the trust hospitals. And that's how I did it.
Makarand, I'd like your perspective on the same, but also an add-on thing. He spoke about trust hospitals. Share your views. I'm also talking about camps where you go out of your territory, so as to speak. You know, where, say from Mumbai, you go towards Palghar or beyond. So those kind of camps too. What are your thoughts on that?
So when I started my practice, I did a few things which I still continue. I firmly believe that in a place like Mumbai, for example, a simple surgery will be done for free in a municipal hospital or at a very nominal charge. Will be done for average charges in a trust hospital, and you can pay lakhs and lakhs for it in a private hospital. And in a place like Mumbai, people have access to all of these. So Mumbai is not a place where you really need charity per se. I mean, fine if you do it, fine if you don't. But still, in and around Mumbai, there are so many places. For example, like I said, I used to and I still do. There are 1 or 2 homes for the destitute and abandoned people who have no one. There is a particular home where retarded children with cerebral palsy, who are old enough now, parents cannot manage and they are kind of shunted there.
I understand.
So these are the places where I usually prefer to go and do some kind of checkups and do some kind of charity, because these are places which actually need that kind of help.
Right.
Otherwise, charity in a place like Mumbai, there's enough work which is
Tell
going
me something. Is it also important, again, maybe in the formative years or even as you go further, let's say a tier 2 town or even Mumbai, when you look at a tier 2 town next to Mumbai, to reach out to those localities so that you can have a pool of patients being drawn in from there also? Does that matter? let me be a little more clear. So let's take an example of somewhere like a place like Latur or Patna or Lucknow, or again, as I'm saying, something which is beyond a tier 1 city. Would it make sense for someone to look to reach out in different directions so that they can spread their own name and their specialty in those by doing camps out there?
So I think there's a wealth of talent all across the country.
Right.
For a person like me sitting in Mumbai to go and do a CME for doctors in that particular area will make a lot more sense.
Okay.
Or to have, say, a tie-up with somebody in such a place who does not have the required skill set.
Right.
But otherwise, doing a camp in a far-flung place, or just unless you are reaching a really remote area who do not have healthcare access.
Yeah.
These are the places that, I really, in fact, it's a small anecdote I would like to share. There is a dam near Pune whose backwaters run for more than 50 odd kilometers in one direction. And the villages which are at the end of the backwater don't have access to anything except a boat which runs on those backwaters once in a week. So these are the places that have gone and done camps, and this is where you're actually helping out society. Right. Otherwise, today there is a wealth of talent, knowledge, money, equipment, everything to say in all corners of the country. So I would probably reach out to my own fellow colleagues and help them upscale rather than have me go and try and work everywhere else,
That's a noble thought. That's good. But coming to the financial part now, and you all both have chosen Mumbai, and even Navi Mumbai is pretty expensive now. Let's shift track to understand that if you are looking to start in a tier 1 city, how would it work? Does it make sense to join up with a few colleagues of your specialty or some other specialty? So does group practice make sense to you? I'll start with Makarand. And if group practice, then are you looking at similar profession, similar specialty group practice, or just a general group practice? Tell me your thoughts on this.
So in today's world, group practice is probably the only way to go forward. Now, it also to a certain extent depends on what your priorities in life are. There are people who are married to the profession. I mean, for them, medicine or their specialty is what matters. It doesn't matter if they have a social life. It doesn't matter if they have hobbies. For them, the practice is what it is. So if you're that sort of a person and you're married to your profession, then well, you can practice alone and you can spend your life doing happily what you do. But if you have any interest beyond your profession, if you have any interest, you want to pursue anything else, it could be music, it could be acting, it could be singing, hiking, trekking, come what may, then group practice is the only way to go forward. It is only when you delegate responsibilities, when you share responsibilities, that you are going to grow not only as a doctor, but also as a human being.
So when you say group practice, are you talking of two similar specialties, like let's say two ophthalms, two ENTs, two physicians setting up a practice together? Are you talking of multi-speciality group practice where it kind of gets, if you may say, patients and a cross-reference to? What has made sense to you? How have you gone about it?
So these are two totally different things that we are talking about. One is your personal growth as a doctor.
Right.
If you see ophthalmology, for example, there are at least 6 to 7 subspecialties.
Right.
If you look at ENT, there are 8 to 10 subspecialties, and so on and so forth. Going into a group practice with your own specialty helps you grow as a professional, because you are able to concentrate more on your area of interest. You're able to, give patient care in a much more focused manner. You're not a bunch of jack of all trades sitting together. You are masters of your own field who've come together to give better patient care, and it helps you grow in your subspecialty also. If you look at doctors from different professions, different specialties coming together, that is purely a business decision. That is a decision which makes tremendous amount of financial sense. So if you're looking at it from a financial point of view, then group practice with other specialties makes a whole lot of sense, because that is where you have different people referring patients to each other, cross-speciality referencing, and business-wise it makes a lot more sense. So financially, that's the best way to go forward. But if you're not really worried or bothered about the financial part of it, and you're looking to just upgrading yourself constantly in your own specialty, then hooking up with somebody who is in your specialty makes a lot more sense.
So I'll come back to that point to you, but Dr. Samir, your views on the same point, and how have you gone about it? You mentioned 30 years ago you've started. So what kind of group practice or?
I am a firm believer of group practice. And so group practice is like a joint family. So in the olden days, we all have been brought up in a joint family. And believe me, joint family gives you the best in different ways. It is budgeted. In a small amount of money, you can do a lot of things. You get a lot of support. So all these things come to you together. And last but not the least, joint family teaches you to compromise with people and live in a better way. So a group practice is like a joint family. If you're willing to work together, certain goods and bads of other are automatically taken for granted and you work together.
Like
so
what? Help me understand.
Yeah. So 32 years back, but like I said, I'm not from a doctor family. So when I started out and I left Bombay, we started a hospital 40 kilometers away from Bombay in a place called Panvel, which is the general hospital. So my partners are from other faculties, not my faculty.
Right.
So it was a 40 bedded hospital. So this hospital, we all came together and we diluted our personalities financially and skill-wise. So we started dividing everything, the efforts, the money earned and everything. So
it got safer.
It got safer.
Right.
So we were all equally involved in doing the business and the practice.
Right.
So like you rightly said, it's a good business decision to come together. So there are times when my faculty is not doing well at that moment of time. For what somebody else is doing well, so at least my finances are set at that moment of time. Plus, like you rightly said, you get your own person to support you mentally, also in the practice when you require, when you are under stress or whatever is the reason.
Is it also a way for someone to start building a practice faster because
Yes.
you know people who are going to lean on you?
So like I said, I had these partners. So 2 of them were senior partners who were already set in their practice. So from day one, they were patients for me.
Right.
So I didn't struggle for patients.
Khali baithna nahi pada.
Khali baithna nahi pada.
Yeah.
So from day one, to be very honest, I started my practice today, and on the 8th day of my practice, I started my first surgery.
Oh, wonderful.
So for that was a big thing to do. On the 8th day of practice, if you can do a surgery of your own patient, which walked into the hospital to a new doctor and got operated. So that was the advantage because I was in a good practice with doctors who were my seniors.
And you didn't face competition with other ENTs in your field.
Exactly. So I didn't face competition from other field because that patient trusted my senior partner. So he said, okay, he's a good doctor. This man has to be good.
Right.
So I got that advantage.
Right.
So in a group practice, you have these advantages. Disadvantages are there, like I said, in a joint family. You may not like everybody from your family, but you learn to live together.
Well said. Moving back to you, Makarand, on this same thing, because you spoke about practice and, taking more interest in the field that you want to specialize in. When 2 people are starting out practice, eventually specialize, does it become competitive? Does it induce some kind of fear that mera patient uske paas chala gaya to kya ho jayega? How did it work for you?
Well, self-confidence is something from which you have to start. Confidence is something with which you start your medical practice. But when you're in a group practice, especially with your own peers from the same specialty, self-confidence is what matters. Because at the end of the day, if I can just quote some random numbers, that 80% of your patients are going to be happy with you what you do. And 20% of your patients are going to be unhappy whatever you do. The same is conversion rate for surgery, for example, or just admission to a hospital. So at the end of the day, self-confidence matters. And the minute people walk into your place or consulting or hospital, they find you, unsure of yourself, or they realize there is competition between 2 people who are in the same place. That is the time when competition inside the practice starts, which is unhealthy. So if you're confident of your work, if you're magnanimous in your behavior, for example, if you specialize in something in your own field and your partner is specializing in something else, never hesitate to send the patient to that partner.
Right.
And the same reverse will happen to you. So if you're in the same specialty, I don't think there is any room for feeling insecure or feeling the sense of competition.
You need the same wavelength, but
you need the same wavelength. Again, like I said, like a joint family, group practice is like marriage. I mean, hopefully you don't get divorced the first time around and it, happens lifelong. But then it may also happen that you find a second or third wife also. Not advisable, but yeah, it could happen.
So I'm going to continue with you on this point, not the marriage a second wife thing, but it's interesting because you spoke about a same specialty group practice and, the self-confidence and staying secure there. But how do the finances work out? Is it always like, what would you think is fair? 50-50 or you earn what you do? How does the financial security come in there?
So, I have done a lot of talks or interactions about group practice and the finances also.
That's why you're here and I want to pick your brains about it.
And there are very, very divergent views about this. The way I have worked in my group practice is that we split everything 50-50. That is the only way that there is no competition. Because when my patient walks to you, for example, and I know that I'm going to get the same amount of returns, then the question of competition doesn't arise at all. The minute you put a percentage on it, the minute you put who works more, who works less kind of a scenario in it, that is the time when you not only start getting competitive, but that is the time you stop living your life. Today, when I go out on a vacation, I know that my income is assured. It's like royalty income. My partner is sitting there and handling all the work.
Right. And vice versa is true.
And vice versa. Yeah. So like I said right in the beginning, that if you are looking to live your life only as a doctor, only married to your profession and nothing else, then group practice is not something for you.
Yeah.
The minute you have multiple other interests in life and practice is only a way of achieving those goals or those interests.
Yeah.
That is the time that, group practice starts to make sense, and equitable sharing is what starts making sense.
So you've spoken about the financial part, and I'm still going to continue for one more question. Because the same group practice, how does it, you said same wavelength or, like-minded. So how does the decision-making happen in terms of patients' individual decisions, but certain power decisions, like when you want to invest in new equipment, how does that happen? Does one partner predominate or how would you go about it?
भाई जैसे मैंने कहा शादी कर रहे हो तो कभी कभी बीवी का सुनना पड़ता है कभी कभी अपनी चलानी पड़ती है सो कॉम्प्रोमाइज तो करना ही पड़ता है विदाउट कॉम्प्रोमाइज देयर इज नो ग्रुप प्रैक्टिस
Right. Okay, so moving back to you, Dr. Samir, and this question is very apt for you. You've been more than 3 decades in practice. I'm sure you've had younger surgeons also come to you. You mentioned something interesting that when you started practice, there were other senior doctors of a different specialty. What's your take today on how, with the number of doctors coming in, competition in each field, do you go about mentoring younger surgeons in your specialty? Are you now building up your own team of your specialty doctors? Tell me something about it.
So the place where I'm practicing, I'm keenly trying to develop my faculty. So the youngsters who are coming in, I am making them practice a particular field. So suppose he's interested in something, and suppose I'm in ENT. So suppose he's interested in ear, somebody is interested in nose, and somebody is interested in throat. But they are juniors. So they have to get patients to get these opportunities to practice their skill set.
So you mean to say you're sub-specializing in fields, in whatever broad specialty you are?
So what I'm doing now, since I'm of the general time when there were no faculties, no specialities, whatever patients I get, I have a group of patients with me. So I see to it that if the X patient requires an X faculty, I refer it to that person. So I'm mentoring these kind of juniors so that eventually 10 years from now or 5 years from now, these people will be able to develop my faculty in a specialized way.
So in a way, you're also saying that the fear that, the first question I started was about jumping into practice. But now, and both of you all said there was an umbrella or a chhatra chhaya.
Right.
So you are looking to now create that scenario over
so
here.
I am giving the patients the benefit of my skill and my seniority, but to a junior. So I stand behind my junior and I let them go to him and I spend my time with the patient there, but let the junior treat him. So this is a kind of a mentorship I am developing for a simple reason is the juniors get confidence and I am developing my faculty in a way it should get developed.
Right. Makarand, I want your views on this too, because with the number of doctors that come out, we know that the competition in each field, whichever specialty you are, has tremendously increased. Would this kind of thing of developing with a senior junior also make sense? Would every specialty benefit by developing their own team, so as to speak?
So what Samir was saying makes a lot of sense because he is trying to get newer people to learn or specialize more. What we have in our group practice tried is what we realized that me and my partner, we spent 10 to 15 years just buying equipment. Today in our specialty, there is so much of equipment that is required that for a newcomer, it is practically impossible to have that kind of equipment. So we have created a setup where any person is happily welcome to come operate his or her own patient, use the facilities, use the equipment, use everything that is there.
Like rent it out to them if...
We don't rent it out.
Okay.
It's a hospital, just like any hospital is going to charge you. But you are not lacking for any piece of equipment. There are so many times that at one particular step, you need something.
Yeah.
And if you are operating in a general hospital, it may not always be available. And as a young surgeon, you may not have everything ready with you. So we are trying to create a setup where everything is there. For every single step, every single surgery, whatever equipment you require is there. If it is there, you use it.
So what are your views on mentorship then? Because this is a parallel question that to the younger doctors starting out in practice, would it make sense to find someone in your own locality, city, as it may be, to hang on to or to latch on to as a mentor? What would you feel?
So working with an older surgeon always will help you because just the amount of gray hair or lack of it that a surgeon may have will definitely give you some advantage. But this is where competition can also kind of start seeping in. That is one. Secondly, at the different stages of life that you are in, your priorities in life, what you need in life, what you want in life will be totally different. So starting up group practice with an older surgeon from your own faculty may not make that much sense. But what Samir is doing is absolutely spot on, that if you're mentoring them, if you're helping them better themselves in their specialty, I mean, that's hats off to...
Okay, so I'm going to take you on the next question before I get back to Dr. Samir. You spoke about marriage and divorces happen too, unfortunately. So when you talk about group practice and I'm taking your specific example because you said that two similar kind of surgeons started together now 15, 20 plus years into practice. Do you plan an exit strategy? What if something goes wrong, naturally or unnaturally? So talk to me about that.
So exit strategy is the first thing that is planned when you start group practice before even what you invest, how you invest, where you invest. Because like you said, it's like the Americans line a prenup, So similarly here, your exit strategy has to be spot on. The exit strategy has obviously to be unbiased. It has to be equal to both. It cannot be an exit strategy for me versus an exit strategy for you. So exit is something which you plan in advance. And once you have it...
Before you jump into it.
Before you jump into it. When you're talking to another person about the whole idea of group practice and you think that you've hit the right wavelength and your thoughts match and your backgrounds match and what you want to do in life match, that is the time that you sit down and talk about an exit strategy. It is a frank discussion to be had on day one because you don't know when things can go bad. But that plan has to be in place and hopefully you will never need to use it. But it is something which has to be there.
So I'll come to Dr. Samir now because I understand what he said with two same specialty, but you have a practice which is multiple specialties. So is there an exit strategy there too? Or if not an exit, is it a handover to the next generation? How does it work out there?
So, like he rightly said, absolutely. When on day one, 32 years back, when we sat together, the first thing which we did, we fought with each other. So we decided, let's fight with each other what we will probably fight later on.
Right.
And try and find a solution to what fights we will have later. So the exit strategy was devised on day one because we were putting in money which was not there. We were taking a loan. So we thought of everything possible discords which may happen and how we will solve them. And then we started off. So that you're aware about what may happen. See, once let me go step of marriage. I am of the time of arranged marriage. So which are non-existing right now, right? So if you talk somebody about arranged marriage, they don't know about it. So it was an arranged marriage. We were four people not knowing each other coming together.
Right.
So compromises were there, the fights were there, were all thought of, devised and solved before you come together. So that was the exit strategy. That's why even though we were from different branches, we were sure about what will happen. And yes, unfortunately now, all of us who have children, and none of them are from the medical faculties. So we have built up a practice, we have built up a goodwill, we have built up a name, but nobody to hand it over to now.
That was my next question to you, that what happens with the next generation?
So now it's a notional value which is there on paper where the practice is of an X value.
Yeah.
But now the takers have to be thought of from a different family or from outside.
So I'll come back to that because that's interesting to discuss. But yes, Makarand, you wanted to add something.
Something very minor it may seem, but the minute you start investing, you need to be insured. Right from day one, that is what we have done, is that commiserate with the amount of investments that we made, because we're putting in money, borrowing from banks, and these are not small amounts anymore. So there is an equal amount of insurance bought from day one. And when you nominate your partnership or your group practice, what you may, for that amount insured. So that in the eventuality of anything happening untoward, which you hope and pray doesn't happen, the remaining partners are not left high and dry, or the family of the ill-fated person is not left high and dry.
Yeah.
So buying insurance commiserate with your investment on day one also is something that you
That's
should
a valuable
really.
tip, Makarand. Thanks. So coming back to, now we already said your kids are not taking up, but doctors kabhi retire nahi hote. So when you have built up such a massive empire, if I may call it, or a hospital or a value that you have, then what would be the handover strategy? How do you, have you foreseen that?
So now in today's times, we have headhunters who come to you and who can sell out your practice, sell out your hospital. There are buyers which are available in different ways. So those times when we started out, when you had to personally seek out people and do business and do things, have changed. So now we are on the lookout of corporates or somebody who can buy out us, and we take our money and we go out.
So we go.
I'll just go a little bit on what he said, just an interesting thing. So even we insured our business when we started out. Then came a time when we realized, after paying premiums for a certain period of time, the amount of premium that we paid was much more than what our place was worth when we bought it.
Right.
So the place was cheap at that time.
I understand.
So the premium was less. But we came to a time when your premium installment was equivalent to the place that I had bought. That's when we stopped paying the premium, because I was paying more than. So these situations are happening now. Now, as you're aware about the health premium, Mediclaim premiums going up.
Yes.
So similar situation happened with us. So it's just a anecdote and something which we came to.
Yes, Makarand.
So simple solution that we found to this problem.
Yeah.
For example, you and I start a group practice and we invest 10 crores and we insure each other for 5 crores. You buy 10 policies of 50 lakhs for say 10 years. 10 years is the time when you look to break even, when your 5 crores is going to be repaid, for example. And every 1 or 2 years, when you feel that you've paid off 50 lakhs, you let one policy lapse.
Right.
So when that policy lapses, the premium starts going down.
Right.
So that is the way that we've
That's the practical way.
That's the
I won't go
practical way
further on that, because again, we are looking to not plan retirement, but we're looking to scale up practice. But I'm going to come to a final question to both of you all before something interesting. And again, going out to the younger crowd, if I may, and it could be 5 years or 10 years or wherever, what would you summarize as a vision message that you'd like to give to younger doctors, or younger to you, that is? They may be 5 years, they may be 10 years into practice, but what is your message to that generation?
So, see, the medical field, the way it is advancing in the last few years, you have to visualize yourself 10 years from now. Everybody, all of us, the youngsters, especially when they're coming out now. So what I would tell them is, you come out, decide what you want to do now, what you want to do 5 years from now, and where you want to be 10 years from now. Keep an aim. Don't just aimlessly start doing things. Keep an aim. Probably the way things are going, economically, financially, logistically, the cities and the country is going very fast.
Yeah.
So you have to be with the country, with the financial
समय के साथ
with समय के साथ जाना पड़ेगा. So private practice, probably the way it is going to be there for a long period of time in a bigger way than what it was few years back. So the corporatization of the practice, Group practice is the way ahead, if you ask me. Like he rightly said, he has started after me. So the faculties should come together and do private practice together and reap the benefits. Because the stress is going to be multiplying exponentially
If you're
with time to come. So
Right.
the only way you can take or dilute your stress is by being together. The best support is from your faculty and from your person who is with you all the time.
Right, that's well said. So,
We are seeing so many young doctors facing stress. We read about it in the media.
yeah,
People dying early for whatever reason. It's the stress which is being taken.
yeah,
So the only way, so believe me, the youngsters have to believe in one thing is believe in yourself and the money comes. Eventually, do not go after the money part of it. Money comes to everybody. Whatever you need will be taken care of. Take care of yourself. Your health is your wealth.
yeah, yeah. Before I come to you, Makarand, you've touched upon a point where I'm going to go a little deeper in the same summary. You spoke of corporatization also, which is happening now in so many cities. Now, from your perspective, with these many decades of practice, what would again be your advice or your inputs perspective about staying afloat by yourself, self-employed, or being part of a corporate? And I'm sure enough have tried to attract you. Where do you, or both are good? What's your perspective? Do you find a balance?
So initially when you start your practice and if you don't have too much of support, financially or anything, but you're good in your work, take care of the corporates as an help to climb a ladder. The corporates are not bad. They are there to help you out, but before they help you, they help themselves. So take that in the stride, join a corporate, take yourself to a level. When you come to a level, believe me, they are also dependent on you at that moment of time. So then you can take a call and be yourself. See, there is nothing better in life than being self-employed. You are the boss. You decide what you want, you decide what you don't want. But when you're in a corporate ladder, there are certain things where you can't decide you don't want.
Yeah.
So take that in stride and go on. And eventually the way things are going, like you rightly said, a small example is when we started out 30 years back, a simple AC would last for 20 years. Now a simple, any instrument doesn't last for beyond 5 years, which is, I'm not talking about medical instruments also.
Yeah, I understand.
So the life of every instrument and everything has gone down, the prices have gone up, so you need them, and when you're self-employed, you have to buy them.
Right.
So,
So would you stay self-employed? Would you stay corporate? Would you stay both? You want a balance?
I would say both. That's what I was coming to. So that's what I said. You balance your way in such a way that you get a win-win situation.
So Makarand, I'd like the same views from you about staying solo, self-employed in group practice. Corporates, balance of both. What do you think is your views on that?
Again, at the cost of being repetitive, when you're in self-employed practice, when you're in solo practice, you are your own master. Nobody can dictate terms to you. Nobody can, again, look at ROI from you in terms of your practice. When you join a corporate, that feeling somewhere at the back of the mind is always there. And unfortunately, it is not just a feeling in your mind, it is also conveyed to you at your annual reviews or your performance reviews. So, in a field like medicine, where the primary aim is not to earn money, the primary aim is patient care and giving good, affordable health care, ROI really cannot be a justification for what practice you do. So, if you want to hold on to your ideals, if you want to hold on to your beliefs, then self-practice or solo practice is the only way that ideally you should go for. Secondly, it makes you a master of your own choices. So, when you want to take a vacation, where you want to work, who do you want to operate, who do you want to admit is entirely your decision and nothing else. No money, no return of investment, nothing really hampers that decision making. So, for a doctor, being self-employed is always the best thing to do.
So let me tweak that a bit, because maybe you're presuming corporate as an employed by a corporate. But are there distinct benefits that a corporate hospital provide, like a 4K camera or a high-end laser, which sometimes in self-employed practice is not really possible? So do you find a balance somewhere between the two?
So that is where group practice helps you. If you are self-employed but unable to get into a group practice where these kind of technological or financial goals are not going to be met, then joining a corporate obviously makes sense.
Like an attachment.
Like an attachment to a hospital where you are afforded the best of facilities. And of course, you end up giving up some in freedom or something from what you're earning otherwise. So, if you have the backup, if you have the kind of financial wherewithal where you can be assured of all these technological advances, only then think of solo practice. Otherwise, having a corporate attachment always makes a lot more sense.
So, what would be your take-home message to, again, as I asked Dr. Samir, to the consultants or clinicians 5-10 years into practice, that if you were to chart a vision forward, he summarized beautifully. Could I have your summarization about practice in general?
So the first thing that comes to my mind is that an old saying which we learned in college, that you can only look as much forward as you can look backward. So when you are in a particular specialty, look at how it has changed from the last 20, 30, 40 years. So if you assume that 40 years is going to be your productive life after your postgrad, try and guess what the course of your life is going to be over the next 30 or 40 years. So basically plan in advance.
Plan further.
Look at what you want to achieve. Look at where you want to be in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, in the next 20 years, and set timelines and set goals accordingly. You can't be adrift in the ocean of private practice, taking where the waves take you. You need to have a game plan in mind right on day one. You may be able to achieve even 80% of your goals, and that is, I think,
it's fair.
It's fair.
Yeah.
Second thing that you need to always keep in mind, again, this is where your entire education comes into play, is that first do no harm. So that holds even more true when you're in private practice, because like we talked right 1 hour ago probably, that you are your own master, you are your own houseman, registrar, lecturer, boss, everything. So if there is something which you feel that is slightly beyond your area of competence, do not indulge in it without having some backup with you. And all the more reason when you're in private practice alone, in self-practices where you don't have backup, do not venture into something where you'll burn your hands. So burn your own fingers is one, and do harm to somebody else, your patient. So these few things you do need to keep in mind before you venture out. And third and last thing is that, again, to summarize, what do you want to do in life? Do you just want to become a doctor? Or do you want to become a doctor and a trekker? Do you want to become a doctor and a football player? So plan out your life goals well in advance and then work towards it.
Plan your life is what you're saying, not just be stuck to a profession. That's very well said and very insightful from both you gentlemen. So, like I said, before we wrap up, there's a very interesting rapid fire round, which is something I'm looking forward to your answers. So, quick questions, sharp insights. Let's go for it. Let's start with Dr. Samir. First word that comes to your mind when I say private practice.
My profession.
Money.
Now let's go the other way. And we're going to keep doing this. Clinical space or hospital attachment, your comfort zone.
Clinical space.
Clinical space.
One thing you wish someone told you before you started your own private practice.
Never get emotionally involved with your patients.
Interesting.
Have a lot of hobbies because you'll have a lot of time on your hands.
Why is most satisfying part of running your own setup?
You are your own master.
You are your own master and you are growing both money and practice.
Okay. One thing you outsource without feeling guilty.
My branch requires support called audiology, so I outsourced my audiology because I wanted a private.
Fair enough.
All my evening patients who I send to my partner so that I can be free in the evening.
Good. Biggest myth about private practice that you want to bust?
That you start earning money on day one and it's a bed of roses. It is a bed of roses with a lot of thorns in it.
Okay. That's something.
Private practice gives a lot of money. It's a myth.
Right. Digital health records, a blessing or a burden?
Blessing.
Burden.
Interesting. Marketing your clinic, necessary or tacky?
Very tacky.
Extremely tacky.
More patients or more time? What would you pick today?
More time.
No brainer, I think, more time.
Alright, both have become wiser definitely with the years. And the last in the rapid fire. the one advice you'd give to a young doctor before starting a private clinic?
Choose your area well. Choose what to do well. Invest wisely because you're not going to do it again and again.
Right.
Think practically, emotionally, financially before you jump into it.
All right, that wraps up the rapid fire. Thank you, gentlemen, for the prompt answers. That was very insightful. What I didn't tell you is there is a special prize for the rapid fire, and I get to choose the winner.
Oh.
And in this case, no disrespect to you, Dr. Samir, but I choose Dr. Makarand as the winner. So thank you very much, Dr. Samir Bhobe, Dr. Makarand Damle, for your insightful conversation on this episode of Top Days. I personally learned a lot that upscaling a practice is not like a toolkit. It's actually a change in mindset where it's a conscious effort to collaborate and grow your practice. Your practice evolves eventually, and probably even we do as we evolve our practice. So once again, thank you so much for being on this podcast.
Thank you, Kshitij. All the best for your future.
I would like to thank Kshitij and Top Tails, of course, for having us on this podcast. And I hope that whatever few insights that we've shared will be helpful and valuable to all those budding doctors who are getting out of their medical colleges. Thank you again.
And that's the perfect setup for our next episode on Top Tails. Because you never know. Nowadays, the first time a patient sees you may not be in your clinic, but it may be in a Google search. So do join us for our next episode on Top Tails, where we will be covering more on the impact of social media and digital marketing in upscaling today's private practice. Until then, it's been wonderful having you listening to us. Take care and bye-bye from all of us at Top Tails.
Top